Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 586. Farewell and Reunion. What? He knows me? The chubby apothecary Darkwill was alarmed as he whispered back. The owl's round eyes looked ahead and said, I noticed that he clearly paused for 2 seconds the moment he saw you when he came in. Perhaps he thinks someone like me doesn't match his image of an apothecary? The chubby apothecary retorted. The owl spread its wings and landed. Suit yourself if you wish to think so. What books have you been reading recently? The fat on the chubby apothecary's face trembled. The owl replied sternly and seriously. My reading is based on your knowledge standards such as those involving soccer. Unfortunately, the words you grasp and can teach me are limited. I have no choice but to read popular novels that have a lower requirement on one's vocabulary. Besides, they're all serialized on the newspaper. Darkwill chuckled. I'll buy a recipe cookbook later. It's called Guide to East Balam Bird Culinary Methods. Without waiting for the owl to answer, his expression sank and he muttered to himself. He knows me? He looks like the standard Loanese man. More than half his blood is at least Lone. I used a fake name to stay in a few cities in Lone. It's not odd to be recognized by him. But I still need to be on guard. If I don't receive any news about Old Man before March, then I have to leave this place. Having said that, he turned his head to look at the owl who was perched on his shoulder. At times, you're still rather useful. No, your eyes and your body language tells me that your real thoughts are darn it. I wanted to buy a pet that can help me beat monsters and gangsters. I sought out beyond ingredients of a potion recipe according to the standards of a dragon, but I ended up getting a silly bird who only knows how to read newspapers and plays. Darn it! I want to stuff another potion down its throat. The owl repeated like a parrot by mimicking the chubby apothecary's tone. Darkwill's expression stiffened for a few seconds before he chuckled. It's good that you know this, silly bird. If I didn't have the powers of a beast tamer, you wouldn't have even managed a single potion. Inside the herb store, the man and bird fell into silence. After a while, the owl pretended as though nothing had happened as it asked, Darkwill, is it really going to work? You've already entrusted this to dozens of adventurers. I'm not good at finding people, so I can only entrust it to someone else. Besides, they have to find and confirm Old Man's location before I make a payment. I don't even need to spend a single penny. The chubby apothecary sked as he said before he sighed. Old Man always calls himself a lucky person and a winner of fate. He should be fine. Will the medicine brewed from this really be effective? While returning to the Wind of Azurin via carriage, Danitz looked at the paper bag beside Klein. The things inside were black herbs, strangely shaped insect carapaces, and weirdly colored flowers. It didn't seem like anything reliable. Klein nodded. Yes. You haven't drunk it, Danitz subconsciously retorted. I trust him. Although his mouth stinks and is rather vile, he has a rather kind heart. Besides, Captain Ellen believes that his medicine is sufficiently effective. As Gehrman's sparrow, Klein didn't respond to Danitz's doubts. He directly picked up the paper bag and threw it over. Without needing any spoken words, Danitz knew what he meant. He was in charge of brewing the medicine. Furthermore, he was accustomed to doing similar matters recently, so he didn't have any urges to resist. After returning to the Wind of Azurin, Klein got a chair to sit in while he watched Danitz light up the fireplace and prop up a pot. He then added water and the herbs into it. Leaning back, Klein felt his head feel groggy. He was very exhausted and felt like he could fall asleep at any moment. In order to wait for the medicine to finish brewing and for him to quickly resolve his illness, he forced himself to consider various problems to combat the fatigue. On careful consideration, during the battle with Vice Admiral Ailment, if I hadn't succeeded in sneaking in an attack on her and suppressing her from the very beginning, preventing her from getting into her rhythm until she eventually found a chance to force open a gap between us by turning invisible, then I might have not been her match. The two powers of invisibility and ailments are really like a bug in a game. Matched with an assassin's lethal strike, and the interference of pleasure, it really makes one unable to find and hit her or escape. One can only watch their body gradually weaken and become inflicted with all sorts of ailments. One can even get mesmerized and give up resisting. On the one hand, it's because every sequence 5 is very powerful, as expected of the sequence just before a demigod. On the other hand, it's because creeping hunger's various powers aren't a good match. It cannot be considered to be multifaceted without any weaknesses. Yes, the powers of a sequence 5 marionettist of the seer pathway is highly effective against invisibility. I can try to help the chubby apothecary find his teacher in the meantime, but without any information, with just a picture, I can only try my luck. I'll have to see when I can directly find a clue. After all, I'm not a god, and I can't find people remotely. Wait, in a certain way, I am a god. I can get god believers to help find him. As long as that old gentleman named Roy King once visited Byam, he would have definitely encountered others and be seen by them. Most native residents secretly believe in sea god. This is what it means by a sea of people. Also, before Captain LN leaves Byam, I should get him to introduce me to a point of contact for the military. In the future, I can get him to reimburse me for any intel. They can also check if there were any travelers named Roy King, who registered on any liners in recent months. There's another method. I've placed the radio transceiver above the gray fog for some time. I should be able to contact the magic mirror, or Rhodes, if I take it down. I was originally planning on asking for Helene's location, but I no longer need to find the red-haired lady anymore. I can switch to Roy King. For a matter which many adventurers have no clue on how to begin, I have 3 solutions. Amidst his thoughts, Klein finally held on until the medicine was successfully brewed. Looking at the bottle of blackish-green liquid that Danitz brought over, he hesitated for 2 seconds before extending his hand to receive it and placed it to his mouth. Gulp! Klein immediately felt his throat burn as his face flushed red. This made him recall his attempt at eating crazy spicy food in his previous life. Suddenly, his entire person awakened as his stuffy nose quickly cleared. Gulp! Gulp! He barely finished drinking it, and felt as though he had nearly recovered from his sickness. By night time, he had fully recovered. He no longer showed any doubt towards an apothecary's abilities. No wonder the potion's name is Apothecary. Klein wore his hat and left the inn with Danitz. Under the cloak of night, they left Byam and came to a secret harbor hidden on the other end of the jungle. Tonight the Golden Dream was providing aid to the resistance. After some coordination and hassle, Danitz used the Soul Fall ritual to contact Vice Admiral Iceberg Edwina. After some time, the ship, that was often scrubbed clean and had a strange main cannon, docked by the private harbor. Its gigantic sails drew 5 types of gold coins. They were the gold pound of Lone, the gold horn of Faysac, the Vo gold of Intis, the gold rizet of Fainapotter, and the Sasson gold of Lenberg. This was the flag of the Golden Dream. It was also the symbol of this pirate crew. It's still not professional enough. If it were me, I would add Porter gold from Mason, Zloty from Seeger, motif gold coins from Balam Empire, etc. Klein stood by the side with his hands in his pocket as he watched Edwina Edwards appear at the bow. At that moment, she was wearing a hunter's hat, a rider's shirt, and a black coat. She matched the image of a female pirate admiral in the minds of the resistance. She often dresses like she's a private tutor. Klein mumbled and took a few steps back, allowing Danitz to run around and busy himself. This pirate worth 5,500 pounds did the liaison, sending a batch of food and fabric to Kalat and the resistance before the transaction came to a close. Danitz secretly inhaled and came to Klein's side and forced a smile. There's nothing else, right? I can now return to the Golden Dream, right? Also, how do you plan on settling the hiring fee? That's only an excuse your captain and I used. In a particular sense, this batch of food and fabric is my payment. Klein nodded. Your captain has already paid. You can return. For real? Danitz found it unbelievable. Although Vice Admiral Iceberg Edwina wasn't far behind him, he was still afraid that Gehrman Sparrow would suddenly have a crazy fit. Klein didn't reply and turned around, walking straight towards the path that led out of the private harbor. Danitz exhaled silently and held back his excited feelings before briskly running back to the Golden Dream. Only when the Golden Dream steered far away into the night, with the private harbor that belonged to the Resistance slowly shrinking in size, did he really believe that he was back on the Golden Dream. At that instant, he felt that he had experienced just too many things over the past half a month or so. It was an unprecedented level of exhilaration, as though it was an interesting dream. At this moment, a sailor came close and asked out of curiosity, "Boss, was Steele Mavady really killed by you?" Danitz immediately laughed out loud and secretly stole a glance at Captain Edwina before saying to his subordinate, "I contributed greatly to this deed. Let's talk over drinks." Above the dark sea, the Golden Dream drifted off into the distance. After returning to the Wind of Azurin, Klein was just about to sleep when he saw the surrounding colors turn abnormally bright. The white bedsheets turned whiter, and the brown floorboards turned more brownish yellow. The dark red curtains appeared like fresh blood. In the scene with all sorts of colors stacked upon each other, Isaac Eggers suddenly walked out from a rippling aqueous void. He was dressed in his usual shirt, bow tie, tailcoat, and a top hat. His skin was bronze in color, and he had soft facial features. How enviable! I also wished to have such powers of traveling through the spirit world. Klein silently sighed as he smiled in greeting while maintaining his appearance. "Good evening, Mr. Isaac." Isaac took off his top hat and looked at the rather unfamiliar face. Without finding it strange, he chuckled. "Apologies. I came in a hurry. I should have knocked on the door. What's the exact situation with those death chronicles?" Klein invited him to have a seat. He then described in detail things he couldn't explain in the letter. Towards the end, he mentioned in passing about the matter regarding Bansi Harbor, saying how it involved King of Angels Medici and his descendants. Isaac leaned back into the chair and said with a frown, "There's such a name in my memories. He should have the two titles of Red Angel and War Angel. However, he had perished long ago." "Perished long ago?" Klein asked in surprise. Isaac nodded and thought over it. "I remember that he was killed by Blood Emperor Alistituder." "Killed by Blood Emperor Alistituder?" Klein's pupils shrank as he recalled the evil spirit that loitered in the underground ruins beneath Backland. It had claimed to be an innocent killed by the Blood Emperor,